for music, and then we'll begin. So I just want to play this for you. It's by Shannon All, and it's a joy to get to know you. Or is it? So let's just relax.
It's a joy to get to know you. It's a joy to get to know you. And I really am liking to share in your world. It's a joy to get to know you. It's a joy to get to know you. And I really am liking to share in your world. When your love is deep and quiet, I can hear it so clearly. It's calling forever to share in your world. When your love is deep and quiet, I can hear it so clearly. It's calling forever to share in your world. It's a joy to get to know you. It's a joy to get to know you. And I really am liking to share in your world. It's a joy to get to know you. It's a joy to get to know you. And I really am liking to share in your world. When your love is deep and quiet, I can hear it so clearly. It's calling forever to share in your world. When your love is deep and quiet, I can hear it so clearly. It's calling forever to share in your world. It's a joy to get to know you. It's a joy to get to know you. And I really am liking to share in your world. When your love is deep and quiet, I can hear it so clearly. It's calling forever to share in your world. It's a joy
To get to know you. It's a joy to get to know you. And I really am liking to share in your world. Isn't that beautiful? It's a joy to get to know you, and I'm liking sharing your world. Okay, Brother Rob has left me instructions that I've got to follow this, and it's about his appeal. Laurie Beth Jones, a business consultant in the United States, was struck by the way in which Jesus' approach to leadership differed so greatly from today's management styles. Two questions nagged at her. How could one person train a mere handful of followers in only 3 years, such that they went on to influence the whole world? And how did he achieve this? With men who, in spite of illiteracy, questionable backgrounds, fractious feelings and momentary cowardice, went on to accomplish the task he gave them to do. In her book Jesus, Chief Executive Officer, she expands on 3 categories of his strengths. The strength of self-mastery, the strength of action, and the strength of relationships. Under the first, she notes that everything he said about himself was positive. Nowhere in the Gospels does Jesus put himself down. Now that's interesting because many of us do, don't we? He was very clear about who he was and what he came to do, and never deviated from it. He did not look for approval from external agents. His actions were not based on what Peter or James or John thought of him. He conserved his energy for his mission. He refused to engage in meaningless debates with people who wanted not to learn but to argue. He never wasted energy begging or manipulating others to follow him. After his discourse to the crowds explaining how he was the bread of life, John chapter 6, many turned away with incomprehension. This teaching is too hard. Many of Jesus' followers turned back and would not go with him anymore. A bit like the Teo community from the early days. It's interesting, isn't it? So he asked the 12 disciples, and you, would you also like to leave? He respected their freedom, as I do yours. His single-mindedness enabled him to do the difficult things. Determined to go to Jerusalem to meet the fate he expected, he did not let the pleas of Peter stop him. Matthew 16, verses 21 to 23. He said no to his mother when she tried to interrupt his teaching. Mark 3, 31 to 33. Then there is his strength of action. He knew his mission would be fruitful because he was doing his Father's work. My Father, he said, is always working, and I too must work. He was clear about what was of the kingdom of God and what was not. 40 of his parables tell us what the kingdom is like, and 25 warn about the fate of those who are unprepared for the kingdom. Jesus knew he could not change his Jewish people alone, so he formed a team. Whom he chose is instructive. He did not invite the learned in Jewish law, the intellectuals, but people who were drawn to him by his own magnetism and excited by his vision of life. He chose heart people, not head people. He did not join the contemporary leadership. The Pharisees were dysfunctional religious leaders, enslaving people. Jesus saw his role as setting people free to develop their potential to mature. I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. John 10, verse 10. It is recognized today that EQ is twice as important as IQ in the workplace. For leadership posts, employers look for 15% IQ and 85% EQ. For what Abraham Maslow, the psychologist, called self-actualization, our greatest need is for meaning, for purpose in life. Jesus gave his followers just that. Thirdly, excuse me, there is the strength of his relationships. He gave himself completely to each encounter. When the rich young man came to him, Jesus looked straight at him with love. He saw the inner person in each one. His single-mindedness about his mission did not cause him to thrust ahead regardless. He invited people's ideas. "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked the blind beggar. He encouraged people to ask for things rather than dictate to them what they needed. Contrary to the custom of the time, he empowered women. Matthew 28, verses 9 to 10. He taught the importance of forgiveness and was quick to practice it. Himself, when Peter 3 times denied knowing him, and supremely by his power, while dying on the cross, for those who had nailed him there. "Forgive them, Father. They do not know what they are doing." Luke 23, verse 34. He kept company as much with the thieves, the prostitutes, the tax collectors, as with the wealthy merchants. He must surely have reflected joy and laughter. He attracted children. People felt good about themselves in his presence. Sad to say, the Jesus vision of the world, the way it might be, has been all but lost over the last 2,000 years, and overlooked by the very body, the Church, whose mission it is to proclaim Jesus, good news. Why is this so? One contributing factor might be this: every Sunday, millions of Christians around the world recite a 4th century creed in their worship. Apart from the many items in this list of beliefs, which increasingly more Christians are having difficulty in voicing, is the strange fact that it passes straight from the birth of Jesus to his death, omitting what is the very core message that he came among us to announce. There is no mention in this statement of his vision, nor of his empowering us to bring it about. To understand the reason for this omission, we need to recall from chapter 2 why the creed was written in the first place. Christianity grew slowly, taking many different forms. It was never one homogeneous community spreading evenly through what is now Europe. In fact, the first differences of opinion of what the Jesus event was all about occurred within decades of his death. The major division was between those apostles who were based in Jerusalem under the leadership of James, the brother of the Lord, who insisted that Jesus had no other intention than to reform his own religion, and the disciples of Paul, who, supported by a vision that Peter had experienced, understood that the Jesus message was for all races. After his vision, Peter had to declare, "I now realize that it is true that God treats everyone on the same basis. Whoever worships him and does what is right is acceptable to him, no matter what race he belongs to. With this belief, Paul and his companions went out into the Gentile lands of Asia Minor and as far as Rome, the heart of the pagan empire. An amazing book is this. I think we leave it there. Ideas differ with time. We might continue them on Friday for Brother Rob. Let us just reflect on one thing. The Jesus of today is not the Jesus that the church proclaims. That is hard for me to say. Because the Jesus of today that's being portrayed by the church is a Jesus that doesn't identify with his people. Because the churches of today enslave the innocent people, the innocent child of God, with so many dogmas and rituals that they're left paralyzed. I was having a conversation this morning with Elsie, and we were just talking in general about the state of the church at the moment and how sad it is that a cardinal, God love him, could condemn homosexuality, same-sex marriages, and gays and lesbians adopting children. But deep within his being, he was fighting his own sexuality, and he was afraid of being ousted by his church and left to disappear. And sadly his sins found him out. Where 4 clerics shared that he abused them when they were in the seminary. And it's so hard to come to terms with it, because so many innocent people will have been wounded by the arrogance of one man, the cardinal, a good man, a child of God, who is loved and who's done a lot of good with his life. But what a tragedy, excuse me, to come a month of retirement, having given his life to the church, that he should be sacked by the Pope and annihilated and publicly humiliated in such a cruel way. But the Jesus that I love is a Jesus of truth. He's transparent. He doesn't force us against our will. He doesn't shackle us with doctrines or dogma. He invites us to love. He invites us to sit with him and to listen to our heart. And that is why I've such a love for the Teo community and the vision. And though many were called and many came and left, the few who have remained are heart-centered. They're willing to give Christ their heart. But they need to be free, because many of us find it difficult to belong to a traditional Christian church, where we know there is very little love for change. They don't want people to be individualistic or unique. They want you to be stereotypical. Like I said to Elsie this morning, when we were young monks in training, over the 7-year period, we were utterly brainwashed. We lost our identity as an individual once we put on the habit, and then we were given a different name, and our birthday, the day we were born, was replaced with the day of our feast day. So slowly, slaughter the pony, we were each being transformed into something we could never be. And you lost your individuality and you became a number. And for those of us who had the courage to leave that system, it took many of us many years to adjust to living in the world. Many of us lost our families because our families didn't know us and we didn't know our families. Because our real family was our spiritual family. So today I thank God for the winds of change. I thank God that people today can find God in their own way, in their own time, and they can have an eclectic belief where they can believe in the Lord Buddha, Vishnu, Ganesh and Krishna. They have a love of Jesus and Sri Chimoy and Francis. I think this is amazing, and I think it's healthy. But what is not healthy is to shackle the children of God, even the members of our community, that they must do this and they must do that, or they'll go to hell. And yes, we are all one. Many paths, many wells, but we're one. When Brother Rob was speaking, I was having a fit of the giggles in the kitchen, a fit of the laughter. And I looked up and I saw a present that was bought for me on my 60th birthday by Elsie, along with other silly things with hens on. When I'm down with the hens, I have to put this on the gate to let people know I'm not in the house. And it says, "Gone to feed the chickens." And I thought, what can I say about gone to feed the chickens? Well, Lent is a time of spiritual preparation where we gone to feed my soul. So while Brother Rob was speaking, I'm in the kitchen with a felt tip pen writing on the back of "Gone to feed the chickens." I'm gone to feed my soul. So for me, as the contemplative living the simple life, the monastic life, it's not a punishment like religious life years ago. It's a joy. Because each moment of the day we're feeding our soul because we're happy. We're happy because we can now accept ourselves for who we are and love ourselves as a beloved of God. And we haven't had to convert or conform to a rule of life that would kill us. We have the freedom to choose, the freedom to go and feed our soul. In my case, the freedom gone to feed the chickens. Let us conclude this session before it gets out of control with just a blessing and a time of stillness. Let us come to the table of many blessings, where we come every midnight for half an hour to listen to the Christ speak to our hearts. Let us be still now. We've been to feed the chickens, and now we're coming to feed our soul. Let us sense the peace and the love of God. Let us sense the Jesus of today, a man with a purpose, a man with a vision, a man who comes to set us free, a man who has set many of us free from being enslaved by guilt and fear and unworthiness. The Jesus that I love, the Jesus that speaks to my heart to become a contemplative or a monastic, is a friend. He doesn't correct me harshly, he does it gently. He doesn't annihilate me and shackle me with guilt and going to hell. He sets me free from religiosity. He sets me free so that I can be free. He allows me to be myself. He allows me to laugh at myself. And He allows me to be me. So as we come together, let us hold hands. Let us cross the internet highway and let us come into each other's presence. And let us look at Jesus sat there with us. He's one of us. He's ordinary, but yet He is extraordinary. He's fun. He loves a laugh. And He doesn't take Himself serious. He has no ego or agenda, but love. And all He says, will you too walk away? He gives us the freedom to follow Him. He gives us the freedom to walk away from Him. So Lent is not a time of looking miserable and downcast. It's a time of celebration, of celebrating the reawakening of your heart, to listening to simplicity, to listening to love, to blessing everything in your life, the mistakes you've made, your illness, the trials and tribulations that we've each gone through to come to this place. It's about looking in the mirror and not seeing what the head sees, but seeing what God sees. A child of God. A child who is loved. A child who is given the abundance to soar heaven and earth. Let us close our eyes and let us just see the Christ, the man, the beautiful Jesus. And He's giggling with us, but He places His hand at the top of our head and He says, well done, good and faithful servants. Because you have been faithful in little things, in the small things, I will give you the keys of the kingdom of God. I make you fishers of all men and women. Through your laughter, through your love of life, and your love for peace, for committing your lives in service to others, for peace and unity. Be still now and just sense the peace of God, the peace of Christ. Just sense His peace and energy flow through you. And we are one. We are one. We are one because we are true to our heart. And in this time of Lent, we have gone to feed our soul, to withdraw from the crowd, and to find time to be still and to listen to that beautiful voice, a voice that does not condemn us, but a voice that sets us free. Oh, how lucky we are. So let us pray for those who are unable to leave that negative religiosity because they're stuck. They're in fear. They're afraid of being punished by God. We're not. We're receiving the abundance of God because we dared to be different. we dared to be free. I dedicate this to you, my dear friends. I dedicate this beautiful song that's coming up, and I would like you to listen to the words, because the words are Jesus speaking to your heart. You Raise Me Up by Brian Kennedy.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be.
He calls each one of us by name because He loves us. All He asks is that we will receive His love and surrender our heart and be free. Be free.
You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. Strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be.
God bless you all, and thank you for taking part. Thank you.